Good evening and welcome to another late edition of the Four Let Bar. And tonight you're joined by myself, Lee Boyce, and Charlie Hopper. Charlie, once more, another very, very good night at Winstardens. But before we go into the action, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on a Fallout Bar, so it's great to be back on and talking about darts again. But look, the match play continues to give us what we want, doesn't it? And the nights keep getting better. So long may that continue as we head to the business end of the tournament.
Yeah, and just before we joined, I could see we've got quite a few in the chat room, and because we've had such a great night of darts, there's quite a few people who've already been commenting on the action itself. Rose was in nice and early, Malati was in nice and early, so we'll drop some comments on the screen. You should be seeing your names appear on there. But just before we go into the night's action, just want to thank, as always, our sponsors, Betfred, for their continued support of online darts, whether it be the Fallout Bar or the Live Lounge. Charlie, we need to go straight into the action. We've got semi-finals to predict. We've got two quarter-finals to discuss that have happened tonight, and we've also got a new or another world number one. So there's a lot to discuss on tonight's show. So we'll go straight in. But before we talk about the action, we had an all Dutch affair in the first game between Danny Noppert and Dirk van Duijvenbode. Danny Noppert come through this one 16-11. Average is pretty much the same in this one, both around the 97 mark. Dublin was better for Danny Noppert on 42% to 36 for Dirk. But what we're seeing last year from quarterfinals, a stat that I was looking at before is there wasn't a quarterfinal last year where the loser got more than 9 leads. In all our semi-finals this year, the losers got into double figures, with the one with the lowest being 11 and that being Dirk van Duijvenbode. But your thoughts on the All Dutch affair, the World Cup partnership going head to head?
Yeah, I mean it gave us exactly what we expected between the two. I know Danny Noppert's had much better form against his Dutch rival. The form against him is pretty special, and he would have been my favourite prior to the match. But look, the game between the two it ebbed and flowed. There was moments where you thought it might run away, and then Dirk would pull the game back. It really was a game that gave us everything that we really wanted. But I think at the crucial time, at the moments when you kind of thought the game was on an edge, Danny Noppert turned up. He pulled the strings at that time, took the double out when he needed to, and that was sort of what costed Dirk at the time. It wasn't that he played badly; it was just the fact that Danny Noppert was a little bit more clinical tonight.
Yeah, so if you just go back to sort of the early stage of this one, Noppert took the lead and had the first lead at the interval going in 4-1. But even at that stage, you can see a bit of nerves from Dirk, missing 6. I think it was in the 5th lead that Noppert got 2 breaks, went in 4-1. Dirk's only lead being that fabulous 1-3-2. Any check out that involves the middle of the board is always great check outs. We saw that from Dirk, but it was Noppert who got that sort of early advantage. And we've seen, obviously, with Noppert picking up the UK Open title this year, what Danny Noppert can do. How crucial do you think that the opening was in this game?
Yeah, I mean, look, the game will go on for a while, so you can look at the opening and you can talk about how in these shorter format games the opening is crucial. But for Danny Noppert, it was, as you said, 4-1 and then 6-3. The big leads in an early game, and it gives you that bit of an advantage, but it settles you into the game a little bit more. And Dirk is naturally then chasing the game, potentially break, and then he will go forward. But as we've seen in so many occasions, as we did in the second game, which we'll come on to, the momentum starts to shift, legs get reeled off, and then we're suddenly back on throw. So I think Dirk, I don't think he'll have been too worried, but at 4-1 down, you are starting to think this game is getting away from me. But as we know, the two top quality players, that you'd back them to pull themselves back in the game in any scenario.
Yeah, and there was a part in the game, I think it was at the third interval, Dirk was 8-7 up, and Joel just confirmed that Dirk was 8-7 up. At that time, I did note down the average between the two players, And at that time, there was a 10-point difference in the average going in the way of Danny Noppert. And yes, he got the strong start, but it just shows there's been a question mark around Dirk. Obviously, we've seen how well he performed behind closed doors. There's been question marks there to Dirk maintaining that with crowds in. But to have that resilience, to be able to stick with someone, to then it bat on throw after being 4-1 down, is now Dirk moving into a player who can compete for these major titles? Yes, it didn't go his way today, but is he a name that's going to be discussed even more when we move into the Grand Prix, the Grand Slam, and then obviously into the Worlds at the back end of the year?
I think you definitely hope so. I mean, I think the inconsistency from Dirk is starting to go away. I mean, he could have easily, completely lost that game and gone with previous match play quarterfinals. So I think he's done really well to pull himself back. But then, as you say, he gets it back to 8-7 leading, and then he finds himself 10-8 down. So it very much ebbed and flowed did the game. But I think for Dirk, he'll have just been, I think he'll be very pleased that he got himself back into the match. But then he'll probably thought, you know what, I could have then kicked on and started to, take the game on and potentially get a couple of legs for myself to give me that buffer between me and Danny. But you know what? I think he's got to be considered. He's a great player. He's great for the sport. And he just loves being in front of the crowd, which, everyone likes to see him play. And, we knew what the game was going to bring up. It was fiery. There was going to be great celebrations. And it was just what we wanted from a quarterfinal.
And I do want to discuss a little bit on Danny Noppert and what he's done this year and how he's going to progress down into tomorrow night. And obviously, we'll make that prediction. But before we do, just one final sort of part under one thing that comes to attention is we've seen throughout the year how his high scoring, his average has been fantastic over the past few months. One of, if not the best average, I think it's been since May on the Pro Tour we've seen from Dirk. But there's a 13-11 or a 12-11. Sorry, Noppert then made it 13-11. Dirk had 105. And Dirk's approach to going to that way wasn't on the 20s, was actually coming down on the 19s, which I was sat with Phil at the time and was looking at it to think it's a very, very strange approach due to the fact on a 105 that Dirk, if he misses the 20s, he's got the treble 15 to leave tops. Whereas if he's done the 19s, if he doesn't hit that first treble, he's left himself 86, would then have to switch to the 18s to leave double 16, you would think. It just seemed at such a crucial time that sort of experience that Noppert's had over the past few months just played in his favour and why he had that edge. And at that point, Dirk then didn't win another leg. And it's moments like that that I still think he's probably just a little bit behind competing now for a major, but it's another step in the right direction overall this week.
Yeah, and that is what separates the top class and sort of the midfield as it was at the top of the midfield to the players who are wanting to be in that top 10 and further forward. But in moments like that is exactly when you need to just either take a step back or know exactly what you're going for to give yourself the best possible chance. And Danny Noppert will probably looked at that and thought, oh, I wouldn't have gone that way, but in the end, it was the turning point, and it changed the way that the game went towards the end. But as Joel says, there missing the big 20 on the 120 finish was fatal. These are the things that we have touched on in the past, and they happen a lot, but they don't happen from the top players, and the top players will punish you when you don't, take out the checkouts or at least give yourself a shot at the outer ring.
Yeah, and that comment from Joel there about that missed 20. That came the following leg after that 105 attempt seemed to go the run way from what Dirk's T-way. He's obviously hitting the treble 20s and the tops. So just moving on then to Danny Noppert. We've seen him obviously, Charlie picked up the UK Open title this year. We've seen him finish the game in fantastic style with a 1-2-1. Any ball finish to win a game, it always seems that little bit more special than any other time during the game. So, first of all, we're in July, but I'm going to ask the question already. Is it going to be very difficult to leave this man out of the Premier League next year? First of all, because he's picked up the UK Open, but now he's a Matchplay semi-finalist as well.
I think he's definitely knocking on the door, isn't he? I mean, I think that question is something for you, Gob and Phil to argue over on the live lounge, I think, when you've got a little bit more time to discuss it. But look, I think he's answering all the right questions, and people who are sat there who make these decisions will have to have him considered in the pool of players that they can look at. You know, UK Open winner, semi-finalist now in the match play, with an opportunity to maybe add this one to his CV in darts. He's going in the right direction, and I think questions will be asked about him whether or not he becomes one of the players that we see in the Premier League.
And one that you are going to give us an answer on, Charlotte. I'm going to push one for you. The rest of this year, obviously, he's in a semi-final now of the match play, so there's an opportunity now. Do you think that Danny Noppert and go on and pick up another big TV title? I don't want to label it as a major because we all have our different disputes about what is and isn't a major, but do you think that Danny Noppert and go on and pick up another TV title in the next 6 months?
It's a good question. I don't think he does, but I think he'll keep having these good long runs in tournaments where we're continuing to talk about him. He's got the UK Open in his back pocket, so any performance on top of that will just be boosting what he's wanting to do and his credentials as a player. He's really pushing, as Rose says, Danny's knocking on the world top 8. You know, he's starting to become in the field of players that you look at and you'd be backing every night. So look for him. I don't think he'll win another on TV this year, but I think he'll have long runs in tournaments which get people higher up questioning whether or not he should be in the lineup for the Premier League.
Yeah, and to Rose's point, as you've mentioned there, he's not on the world of the top 8. The official rankings don't get updated until after the tournament. However, Danny Noppert will be at least in 10th place by the start of next week when those rankings get updated. So he's certainly knocked on the door, and in this form, it's going to be hard to see him not moving into that top 8. Charlie, moving on to Dame number 2, and we've seen Gerwyn Price go on and win a battle against Jose de Sousa that at one point didn't look like it was going to go that way. But we need to start with those 160s, lead 2, lead 4. Gerwyn Price gets broken in lead 1 after Jose 14 dot lead, taking it 80. Price then fires in a 160, but Jose is having absolutely none of it and fires a 160 in himself in lead 4. What a start to our final quarter-final.
Yeah, I mean, what a game. What a game it was. I thought when I watched the Michael van Gerwen game last night and the end of that, I thought things just can't get any better. But what a game that was. And it case for both players, it was a case of anything you can do, I can do better. And it was just blow for blow with both of them. But the 160, that's top quality from both players. We know they've got it capable to do that, and the averages and the checkout percentage as well. It really was a top quality game, and you know it could have gone either way towards the end of it as well.
Yeah, but Lod says we'll delve sort of through the Dame in this one. And then after 10 leads, the scores are level. We saw it after 15 leads with Dirk and Noppert. There was just 1 lead in it, but there was a huge difference in the average here. Gerwyn Price averaging 103 after 10 leads, Jose averaging 91. But a lot of talk has been about Jose and in close games. But early on in this one, he was sticking with Price, but he was miles behind in the scoring. But Price then pushed on and saw that from that 5-all. We saw him then double and push on, and that average of 104 only moved 3 or 4 points either way. It was just a great performance at that stage.
Yeah, I think Jose has a habit, doesn't he, of doing this where he stays in games, even when you kind of don't you don't talk about him a lot because he just stays in games. He goes about his business the right way, and that's what he did. That's the thing with the game in terms of the way that it went, is that Price, if you let him get away too far, he'll just run away with the game, and we've seen that so many times. So for Jose to stick with him and to keep alongside him throughout the first stages of the game was excellent from him, and for such a different average as well. That takes some serious quality and clinical darts from Jose. But the game could have been completely different, but he hung in there and ultimately gave himself an opportunity at potentially stealing the match late on.
Yeah, and at that 5-all, Gerwyn Price then went and won 8 of the next 11, went into a 13-8 lead. sort of looked like then it was going to be a sort of a one-sided affair was Jose then a into double figures. And Gerwyn Price allowed him back into the game. Yes, Jose won the run. He averaged around 112 when he got that done back to 13 apiece. But what's been probably forgotten is that Gerwyn Price missed 3 darts in that lead to go 14-8 in front. But that then seemed to spur Jose on. And the fight back, like it says, average 112, he just looked like a completely new man when he looked completely out of it.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Lee. At 13-8, I thought that we would literally be on here very quickly. I thought this is it. This is the game's done now. And I was just getting flashbacks of the MVG match last night because Josie slowly pulled off one leg and then another, and then the celebrations were getting bigger, and it was the momentum was swinging. You could see from Price he was quiet. There wasn't that that manner on the stage. It had gone. He was a little bit shaky, and to get it to 13 all, it was just a shame that the leg after 13 all, Jose just about he let himself down in that leg, and he struggled to score because it really was a case of my back's against the wall. I've got nothing left now. I'm gonna give everything to hold on into the match play. And if he hadn't have run out of steam at the end like he did, we could have seen one of the best comebacks in the match play that we've seen for quite a few years.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And also to include in that little run from 13-8 behind to levelling the game up, twice Jose went 6 perfect and was on 1-4-1 for the 9. I'm adamant that there's one coming this week. I did say when I was talking to Phil the other day, I thought it was going to be coming in the quarterfinals. I thought we was going to have it, and we've certainly had the opportunities. And Jose, let's be honest, didn't look like he was going to take any of those. There wasn't really any that was that close in regards to the 7th start, but he certainly put up a huge fight to that bat. But as you said, he just wilted then. It seemed like he thought he'd done that, sort of he'd done all the hard work, but there was still a little bit more work that was required. But credit to Desi, because when Joe had 13 all, or maybe it was the lead after when Jose had the throw, it was only a 60 from Jose, and Price went straight in with a 180 and sort of asserted his dominance back on the stage. I think we saw a 168 as well. The lead after, and we saw a huge celebration from Price, and it was sort of early on in the lead that we saw it, but it was a huge celebration, and it was a huge battle for Price. There's question marks there from this year. We know he didn't have a great Premier League, but what a performance that was from the world number 1.
Yeah, I mean, at 13-8, you probably sat there. He is probably sat there thinking, "Look, I'm going to get off the stage very quickly here." And as a player starts to gain momentum, you do start to question, what's going wrong here? Where am I going wrong? And then, as we saw the celebrations for just the big visits, is that release of pressure for him. He knows that the pressure's on him. Everyone wants to beat him. The crowd are 90% are against him. That's just how it is when he comes onto the stage. But he showed some real bottle to weather the storm, to turn it, and then to find his way back into the game. It's just a shame that the game finished on quite a few missed doubles from Jose, 5-5 letting him down towards the end, because it wasn't really the way that the game had gone. But you could see the relief on Gezi's face when he looked up to the ceiling, and he knew that he'd done it. He'd got over the line. It was an exceptional game, and I think for him, he'll take a lot of confidence for that. But also for Jose, who's not been in the best form recently, I'm sure he'll take a lot of confidence from his performance today.
And we have got a clip from both Gerwyn Price and Danny Noppert. But just before we go into those clips, Charlie, there's the comment here from Adam that states Price highest average of the tournament will take some stopping now. Do you think that is beaten? Because to average what he did over the length of that game, over 30 leads, is an incredible standard from someone who hasn't been in the form that we've seen when he got to become world champion. Do you think that that's beaten this weekend?
I don't think it does this weekend, but that is an incredible achievement across the course of the match, especially when so many things. So when the game was at the highs that it was, when Gerwyn was away with it, and then there was a bit of a dip as well, wasn't there, when Jose started to fight back? So I think that level that he's set the bar very, very high now, and if someone beats that, that will take something very, very special for something to beat that, because Gerwyn Price showing just why he's where he is in the world rankings.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So just going to hear the clips from both players. We'll start off with Danny Noppert, and then we will hear from Gerwyn Price. So first of all, a short clip from Danny Noppert, the winner of the first quarter-final on Friday evening at Winter Gardens.
Feeling good to reach a semi-final, like a tournament like this. And for the rankings, it's good. I'm now in the top 10 of the world. Yes, special.
Yeah, as we spoke about, Charlie, he will be moving into the top 10 of the world, and justified. Dr. Wadon and the New Day Open to follow that up with a match-play semi-finalist. We've still got a lot of TV events. He's certainly showing what a player that Danny Noppert can be in a country full of Dutch talent. He's certainly there, leading himself and pushing himself up to second, and then we'll be challenging Michael to continue with that form. But we'll move on to Gerwyn Price. This is a clip that I haven't heard, but Gerwyn Price, remember, has moved up to world number 1. We'll hear from the Iceman now.
I thought Peter was defending 50,000 in this. I thought I was automatically there, but when people were tagging me and say win tomorrow, I was like, well, but there you go. A little bit more pressure probably spurred me on to win this game, because if I was no pressure on me, maybe I could have just relaxed a little bit too much.
Do you feel you're the form man in this tournament right now?
After today, yeah, I think I am. It took 2 games to find my flow, but I was consistent today. I wasn't spectacular, but I was more consistent than Jose was. So, yeah, hopefully if I can top this game over the next two rounds, then I'm sure that trophy's coming back to Wales.
Just then, Charlie, a couple of questions from what Price has mentioned there. First of all, following on from that form, do you think he's the most in form of the 4 players remaining in this tournament?
Yeah, I probably would say he is at the moment, just going off of the way that he's built in the tournament really well. I mean, look, MVG's in some really good form as well. I do question him at times, especially when he misses the darts at the double, or when players start to get on top. You always question, is this the moment when MVG sort of kind of it loses that momentum that he's got? But I think at the moment, with the way Price is playing, he'd have to fancy himself. But in the semi-final, if he can get through that game as well, he'll have to play pretty special with Danny Noppert in the form that he's in as well.
And just before we move on to looking at tomorrow night, which is always a special second Saturday in Blackpool, because we always have 2 very good semi-final. Now he is world number 1, and he knows that's cemented whatever happens this week. Do you think there's a bit of pressure off his shoulders down into tomorrow night, because that world number 1 is guaranteed? Yes, you want to go on and pick up the match play title, and we haven't even mentioned the fact that this is the first time that Gerwyn Price has been past the quarterfinal. He's been in the quarterfinal 3 times, but he's never got to this stage. Will that pressure be eased on his shoulders now he is world number 1?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting to hear him say there that he didn't really know that was the case.
Yes, he did. We know he did.
I think him saying that is a case of him playing it down. But I think, look, Gerwyn's come from a sporting background with rugby and being very competitive in that. So he'll want to win. He'll want to win in style. So I think, he's ticked off a box that he's now back into the position of world number 1. But now he'll really want to send a statement out. He'll want to be lifting that trophy at the end, and having played some pretty incredible darts throughout the match play. But he'll still be confident. The pressure, it'll be off. But now that he's world number 1, everyone expects him to be at the top of his game. So I think it ramps up even more for him as well. So he's still got to get through one more game to get to the final, and then potentially another game after that. So still a long way to go for him. But he'll be pretty confident that he can get the job done.
And it links in perfectly. We'll stay with Gerwyn Price and Danny Noppert, as the schedule has been released for tomorrow, and it will be Gerwyn Price and Danny Noppert who will open up semi-final proceedings tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, and it will be followed then by I've forgot the semi-final for tomorrow night, and it will then be followed up by Michael van Gerwen and Dimitri van den Berg. So, Charlie, prediction for tomorrow night: Danny Noppert, Gerwyn Price. Does which one of them will make their first match play final?
I'm gonna side with Gerwyn Price. I think he wins 17-14. I think it's a really good game again. I think as we've seen, I think Price will grow into the game. I think Danny Noppert again will give a good account for himself, but I think he'll just fall short. But again, this is a game where I don't mind who wins, if that makes sense. I'm not really bothered who wins because, either way, Price winning would be great, but also Danny Noppert getting over the line would be a great story for him and an opportunity to double up on the year. But I think Price will just have a little bit too much and will get over the line.
Yeah, there's a few coming in. See, we don't even have to tell the chat room now to get their predictions in, because they're just throwing in without we telling them. Tommy's done for 17-13 to Price. Rose 17-12 for Desi. 17-15 from Adam for Price. However, Manatee has done for Noppert. The only one I've seen so far who's done for Noppert to come through with a victory. Sam's got 17-13 for Price. For me, I put a tweet out yesterday that Michael van Gerwen goes on and lifts this World Match Play title because there's just something about him at the moment. But I'm questioning it a little bit, and the only reason I'm questioning it is because of Gerwyn Price. So for me, Gerwyn Price comes through that semi-final. I think he can follow on with the same level of performance, and I think it will be too much for Noppert. And I think Price probably to be the storyline than what we've seen. I think it could be to about 10. I think Gerwyn Price will really let down tomorrow night, and we will probably see him drop, because I don't see that average being done then. We'll probably see him drop to more of a 101, 102. But I still think that's over 100, and he could average with 110, 111 for a lot of the game. So I think Price goes through and wins that one 17-10. And then we move on to second semi-final. And what a game this is going to be. Michael van Gerwen coming back into form. Had an operation, people, for that only a few weeks ago. But he seems to be every day getting better and better. And then we've got Dimitri van den Berg, who absolutely loves Blackpool. This is now his third semi-final in 3 years. He's trying to make it his third final in 3 years. Remember, we picked up the title just 2 years ago, was in the final and was defeated by an unstoppable Peter Wright last year. Who wins this one, Charlie? Nice and easy one for you.
Yeah, again, this one could go either way. But I think the difference between the two players will be a little bit bigger. I'm going with MVG to win 17-13. I just think there's something different about MVG now, isn't there? He's got over that lull of form, the drop off that we've seen, and he really does mean business. I know he just crawled over the line last night, quite literally. But I think, although it's going to be a tight game, neck and neck, I think MVG will just have enough to get over Dimitri van den Berg. But again, this could go either way, because we know what Dimi's record's like in Blackpool.
Yeah, I can't help but side with Michael. He's just come into some fantastic form. Fortunate enough to see him around the arena, and since his first game, he's looked so focused. He's looked so determined to go on and put on a performance, and he won't like this conversation that we're seeing that Wright has now left world number one and Price has taken over. And he's not in those discussions currently, but he will want to be back in those. He will not like the fact that we've seen a world number one keep switching, but he's not in that conversation. And for me, I think he goes on and he's got too much for Dimi. However, a big part in this game is the pace of Dimi playing, and then Michael react to that. We've seen Dimi slow down a few times this week. We've seen the sort of all this to his family and his friends, and that's happened before we've done into an interval and after led. And it's how Michael reacts. Does Michael seem to react to it yesterday during one of the breaks? He seemed to take the mickey a little bit out of Dimi. So it depends if Michael focuses and just on the game and don't get distracted into any of these mind games that Dimi, I believe, will try and play him with odds of slowing it down. I think Michael can go on and win it. I think this one goes very deep. I think it's 18-16 to Michael. I think we could go a very, very long way on Saturday night, and with the 8 o'clock start that we've got this year, we could be having a fallout bar earlier as a Sunday morning because of how deep that second semi-final can go. But I think Michael will come through on that one. Charlie, as you are not joining me tomorrow night, I believe it's Cam. As you predicted your semi-finals, let's have your winner as well. who you think's going to go on and lift up that title on Sunday evening?
Big
I've totally got you off guard here because I know you wasn't expecting the final pick.
As I predicted, I'm Price MVG final, and I would love to see MVG lift the trophy. I really would.
You'd love to. Do you think it'll happen though?
I do think it'll happen. I do genuinely think it will happen. I think he's playing some great darts, and I just think it would be such a nice way to see him bounce back on big Sky TV, everyone watching, to silence a couple of critics. But I expect if it is those two in the final, that will be an absolute cracker.
Yeah, I think we will see that final. But fortunate enough for me, I don't have to leave my final prediction until tomorrow because we have 2 semi-finals and I'll be joining Cam. So I can let the opt-out of that today, Charlie. But as always, thank you very much for joining us on the Fallout Bar. I know, as you said at the start of the show, not been on for a while, but it's always good to have you on, Charlie. And I'll be joined tomorrow by Cam. As always, everyone who has joined us in the chat room, thank you very much. To our sponsors who you can see on the bottom of the screen here, Winmare, Red Dragon, Modus and Betfred for their continued support for the Fallout Bar and our live lounge, which will be back on Monday. Thank you very much for joining us from, as I said to you off air, Charlie, a Blackpool that's a little bit colder than it was at the start of the week, which might be helping the players. So from Blackpool, I will see you all tomorrow night when we are discussing not only the match play final, but we will be previewing the women's match play, which will be on Sunday afternoon. Thank you very much from myself and Charlie, and good night.